Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will begin with chapter 18, verse 1, beginning of Parshas Vayeira. Avram has just had a circumcision at the end of Parshas Lech Lecha, and it says, Vayeira love Hashem be'elonei Mamre. Hashem appeared to him in the plains of Mamre, Fu Yoshev Pesach ha'oel k'chom hayom. And he was sitting by the opening of the tent in the heat of the day. Something very striking in the pasuk. You would have thought the pasuk would say that Vayeira Hashem el Avraham, God appeared to Avram. It's just sort of a little strange. God appeared to him. It's a little bit challenging. I should note that it's not just that we begin reading this week's parsha. The Torah has a break at the end of last week's parsha, so it's like a new paragraph, lahavdil, beginning with the word him. God appeared to him as opposed to God appeared to Avraham. A little striking. If you look at the Kli Yakar on Pasuk Aleph, Vayeira elav Hashem be'elonei Mamre, Lo nemar Vayeira Hashem al Avraham. Doesn't say that God appeared to Avraham. Lefi sheshmo va'atzmuso hayu shnei afechim, because his name and his essence were very different. Ki shmo Avraham al shem av hamon goyim. We know why his name was Avraham. His name was Avraham because God makes him this father figure, this authority figure over all the nations. More al hasrara v'ha'is nasos. That name connotes a general sense of authority, elevation. V'atzmuso haya anav mikol. And yet in his personality, he was the humblest of men. Ki chein more masha amar v'anochi afar v'efer. Avram speaks to Hashem in this week's parsha. He says, I am nothing, I'm dirt, I'm nothing to you. So his name was a name of tremendous prominence, and his essence was an essence of tremendous humility. Ukadesh lo yomru shakadosh baruch hu nigla biyoser al hagdolim mitzad gdulasam al kain lo amar Vayeira Hashem al Avraham lahoro shalom mitzad yoso av hamon goyim niro elav Hashem ki im mitzad muhus atzmuso ki anav v'shafal berach. So it's a really nice idea from the Kli Yakar. Why did Avraham merit God's appearing to him? You could say it's because he's Avraham, because he's great, because he's like a world figure at this point. Or you could say because he's a person of remarkable piety and humility. So if the pasuk would say God appeared to Avraham, your takeaway would be because he was really important. Instead, it says God appears to him, who he was as a person. And that speaks to a sense of humility. Like the rabbis say in the Gemara, that we say that God brings his divine presence upon a person who is wise, who is strong, who is wealthy, who is humble. But the point is that a person has to have a certain character. So a love is who he was as a person. God appeared to him because of his character. That's one pshat of the Kli Yakar. Davar acher, another pshat. Behepach said the other way. Originally, God was happy to appear to him as Avram. Now, Avraham was an upgrade from Avram, but the meaning of Avram was he was a father for Aram. Kli Yakar says what that means is he inspired the people in Aram. And because he made a difference for these people, he inspired these people, God appeared to him. But for his own essence, for who he was as a person, he didn't deserve to see the divine presence. Because he wasn't even circumcised. That he hadn't done anything wrong, but he wasn't elevated to the level that warranted God appearing to him. But God appeared to him anyway. Why did God appear to him anyway? Because he was a person with an important mission. Even if in his own credits, he didn't necessarily deserve the remarkable honor of God appearing to him, because of his mission he did. But now he's been circumcised. Now he deserves for God to appear to him, not only because of his mission, but because of his own purity. Ulahoros al zeshamara zu haisa bavura mila nirei love be'elonei mamrei. Okay, this is another point that he makes. So two very different pshatim in the Kli Yakar. The first pshat being, don't think that God appeared to him because he was this really important person. God appeared to him because because who he was as a person, which was humble. The other pshat is that don't think that the only reason God appeared to him was because of his important mission, and up until now, that was the only reason God appeared to him. Now the reason God appears to him is because he's bettered himself by having a circumcision. Okay, let's jump ahead to, let's jump ahead to verse 7. A famous thing as God is visiting with him, whatever exactly that means, and Avram looks up and he sees these three individuals, and he's very excited about the opportunity to do hachrasas orchim, to bring them into his home. And we say in verse 7, V'el habakar ratz Avraham, Avram ran to his cattle, v'ikach ben bakar rach v'tov v'yitel al anar, v'yimeher la'asos, and he took an animal in good condition. He gave it to the lad to prepare it. Now, Avram had just had a circumcision, okay? And it was days after his circumcision, and he's running around. Verse Ramban, Pasuk Zayin, Ramban and Pasuk Zayin. The Tam ve'ela bakarotz Avraham, lahagid rov chishko b'nedivus, to show his tremendous desire to be a person of generosity. Ki adam hagadol, asher hayu beveso, shmona asar ushlosh me'os ish sholev cherev. I mean, we talked last week's parsha about a war. It said in the pasuk he brought 318 men along with him to fight. So he had a real household. He had a real entourage. Vuzakin ma'od, he's an elderly person. V'cholush b'milaso, and he's certainly physically weakened by circumcision. Halach hu ba'atzmo el oel Sarah. Lazari zosa basiyas halechem. So the first thing he does at 99 is he rushes over to Sarah's tent to ask her to make bread. V'yachrei kain ratzam makom bakar. Levakir misham ben bakar rach vatov lasos la'orchav. And then he hustles over to the animals to choose the right one to slaughter. And all this running around he did himself. So again, this is standard, but just the Ramban lays it out so nicely that we see. I mean, it's amazing that this part of the story is related in the Torah at all. For all the things that the Torah hints to, we didn't say the story of Ur Kasdim last week. You know, the fiery furnace. It's all in the Medrash. But this story, Avram running around to figure out how to serve the guests, it's in the Torah, a number of verses in the Torah. The point seems to be what the Ramban is bringing out, that it's not only that Avram did kindness, but the tremendous devotion and excitement with which he did it is a model for each and every one of us today. Okay. He gives them food, they eat. Verse 9, Vayomru elav ayeh Sarah ishtecha. They said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? Vayomer hineva oel. And Avram responded, oh, she's in the tent. Now there's a very famous medrash on this cited by Rashi, that the reason they asked, where is Sarah, your wife? I mean, first of all, it's not so complicated to figure out. She might be in, like in the kitchen or like in the tent. I mean, they're doing a meal now. So it's so, it's not such a big house, presumably. And also, I mean, they're angels. If they really needed to know, they probably knew anyway. So the Medrash says that they wanted to point out to Avram her modesty, that she was, again, it's very important with these kind of things to understand that the social norms of the time were very different than they are today. This is not to say that a good Jewish wife has to always be in the back, but for the time, that was appropriate modesty for the time. So did Avram have zero appreciation for his wife's character? Like the Medrash says they wanted Avram to realize that she was in the back. Did he not know she was in the back? Did he not appreciate the value of her being in the back? What's this about? So Kli Yakar on Pasuk Tes. Ayeh Sarah ishtecha. Piresh Rashi explains, It's to make her more beloved in the eyes of her husband. They wanted him to know that she was modest. Vikasha, it's difficult to understand. Did he not know until now that she was modest? Vinira Lefarish, it would appear that the pshat is mashma avalo eleha. They're about to say to him, one of the angels is about to say, I'm going to return to you at this time next year. And he says, I'm going to return to you. You, it's singular. So he's talking to Avram. And on some level, the implication is, I'm going to return to you, Avram, and not her Sarah. Maybe the wording of I'm going to return to you, Avraham, will make Avram wonder, maybe this is only in his merit. And deeper, maybe the reason they haven't had a child all this time is because she's holding him back in some way. Okay, the angel wanted to make sure there wouldn't be this much misunderstanding. So he says to him, where is Sarah, your wife? The angel knew good and well where his wife was. So he's pointing, he's just reminding him how unique it is, how modest she is to be where she is. And therefore it's evident that it's not that she's holding back, that she's holding them back, that it's because of some lacking in her that they haven't had a child. So he says that's why when the angel is talking to Avram, he brings it to Avram's attention that she's in the tent. Avram knew she was in the tent. Avram knew she was modest, but the angel wants to make sure Avram understands that the angel appreciates that she's modest. That he should understand that the reason they haven't had a child yet is nothing about her. Skipping into the next paragraph, Alkain Libi Omer, Shashelas Aye Vayo, Aina Shela Makomas Lomer Efu Wohi, Elashelas Hamachregos, Kilashan Makom Mora Ala Machrega, Veloshoalo Cloud Baeza Makom Huohi, Elashalo Amakom Matregasum Balasam, Benin Masea Matovi Mashir Bavuram, Yizkushne and Lebain. It's a very interesting pshat. The Kliyaker suggests that Aye, that we translate it as where, he says is actually not a physical, what are the coordinates of your wife right now? Rather, where is she at spiritually? In other words, that he's pointing out to Avram how lofty of a level both of them are on. So we discussed the Kliyaka regarding the emphasis not on God appearing to Avraham, but God appearing to him and what's meant by that. We saw the Ramban just giving us a greater appreciation for Avram's great excitement and devotion to serve his guests. And we saw this kliyakar as to what the significance is of the medrash, that he's asking where your wife is. So we're just going to stop the recording.